This account reads with the intensity of a thriller, yet it unfolds within the pages of history. If you're drawn to suspense that tightens with every moment, unexpected courage that changes destinies, and a rise to influence that no one saw coming, then prepare yourself. This narrative stands apart from the rest. Set within a powerful empire, where decisions are sealed with absolute authority, a hidden danger begins to grow in silence. A single decree threatens an entire people, and no one dares to challenge it. Yet behind the scenes, something greater is unfolding. The scriptures declare in Esther chapter 4 verse 14, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" These words echo through every scene, revealing that this is more than a sequence of events. It is a story marked by purpose. Courage rises where fear once lived, silence gives way to bold action, and in the most unexpected moment, everything begins to shift. A young woman is taken from a quiet, hidden life and brought into the dazzling yet perilous environment of the Persian royal court. Behind the beauty and luxury lies a looming threat. Her people stand on the brink of destruction. Time is slipping away, and the destiny of an entire nation now rests in her hands. The bravery of Esther, the quiet movement of divine purpose, and a sequence of unexpected turns come together to form a narrative unlike any other. Here is the remarkable element. The name of God does not appear even once, yet his presence can be sensed throughout every moment. Moving through royal corridors, working behind secret plots and shifting alliances, this account draws you in with its intensity, stirs your heart with its tenderness, and ultimately reveals the unmistakable evidence of a guiding hand that cannot be seen. This is more than a story to hear. It is a powerful expression of faith that reaches into the depths of the human spirit. Bravery and divine guidance stand at the center of it all. Pass this message along to someone who needs to be reminded that God's power is active, even in seasons when he appears silent. Now, we turn to the account of Esther, where what cannot be seen becomes impossible to ignore. As we approach this compelling narrative, filled with royal intrigue, the boldness of a queen, and unexpected turns that led to the rescue of a people, we begin at the origin. Who was responsible for recording this enduring account? The answer is not entirely clear, adding another layer of mystery to the narrative itself. The Book of Esther stands apart, not only because of its captivating storyline, but also because its author remains unknown. Some believe it may have been Mordecai, Esther's relative and guide, who witnessed these events firsthand and preserved them with care. Others suggest it may have been a Jewish historian living in exile, someone committed to preserving the memory of one woman's courage and the deliverance of her people. There are also scholars who propose that it was written later by a scribe, recounting the events during the reign of King Xerxes, a period when the Jewish people were holding firmly to their identity while living under foreign rule. The setting of the Persian Empire provides a powerful backdrop for these events, stretching from present-day India to Ethiopia. It was a vast and formidable kingdom governed by absolute authority. King Xerxes, known in Hebrew as Ahasuerus, ruled from his palace in Susa, a place marked by wealth and grandeur. Within its walls were golden thrones, extravagant banquets flowing with wine, and constant political maneuvering. It is within this environment that Esther's account unfolds, becoming interwoven with history through themes of courage, faith, and survival. Yet even with its richness and depth, this book presents something truly unusual. The name of God is never spoken. Not one direct prayer is recorded. No overt miracles are described. Why would such an essential part of Scripture omit any direct mention of the one who is behind it all? This absence is intentional, not accidental. It reflects something deeper. Some believe it mirrors the experience of the Jewish people in exile, where faith often had to be practiced quietly and without public expression. Others see it as a purposeful literary choice, inviting the reader to recognize God's activity in subtle ways, in the details, in the timing, and in events that align with remarkable precision. Consider the sequence of events: Esther's rise to the position of queen, Mordecai uncovering a dangerous conspiracy, the eventual downfall of Haman. Each moment connects seamlessly, as though guided by a presence that remains unseen. The message becomes evident. God is continually at work, even when he is not openly acknowledged, shaping ordinary circumstances into powerful demonstrations of providence. The structure of this account is equally compelling. It unfolds with the intensity of a political drama and the emotional depth of a personal journey. The narrative is carefully arranged, building tension step by step. From the grandeur of the Persian court to the construction of the gallows intended for Mordecai, every detail contributes to a rising momentum that leads toward a powerful turning point. Each moment reinforces the strength of courage, the necessity of faith, and the importance of perfect timing. As the account of Esther continues to unfold, it is important to reflect on the mystery surrounding its authorship. Perhaps it is fitting that the writer remains unnamed. This narrative extends beyond a single individual, beyond one group of people, and beyond a specific moment in history. It reveals the work of a God who operates behind the scenes, bringing about deliverance through acts of courage and obedience, using everyday moments to accomplish extraordinary outcomes. Before moving forward into Esther's elevation to the throne and the bold choices that would define her, consider this for a moment. Have you ever sensed God near you during a season when he felt silent? Have you recognized his guidance quietly shaping events in ways you didn't understand at first? Let us continue along this path and witness how God's unseen hand reshaped not only Esther's life, but the future of an entire people. From the quiet uncertainty surrounding the writing of Esther's account, we now arrive at the setting where her story takes form, a stage unlike any other. The vast Persian Empire under King Xerxes, identified in the Hebrew text as Ahasuerus. Envision a kingdom so immense that it extended across 127 provinces, reaching from the distant regions of India to the farthest borders of Ethiopia. This was a realm marked by extraordinary wealth and authority, governed by a ruler whose commands were absolute, whose impulses could bring down cities, and whose decrees could determine the destiny of nations. At the center of this empire stood the magnificent city of Susa, the seat of Persian power, where Esther's life would intersect with a greater purpose. Susa was no ordinary place. It was a display of splendor and influence. The royal palace gleamed with brilliance, its halls adorned with marble, ivory, and gold. Expansive gardens stretched through its courtyards, where flowing fountains sparkled and rare plants filled the air with fragrance. Feasts held within these walls were far beyond simple gatherings. They were displays of excess, marked by overflowing wine, lavish dishes, and a king eager to exhibit his immense riches. Yet, behind the beauty of jeweled halls and elegant drapery, the Persian court was filled with tension and hidden danger. Political maneuvering was constant. Officials competed for influence, alliances shifted without warning, and the king's favor could change as quickly as the wind across the desert. This was a place where only the bold could endure, and it was exactly the environment where God's purpose would unfold. The account begins with the downfall of Queen Vashti. Her refusal to present herself before the king and his intoxicated guests led to her immediate removal from her position. While this moment may appear to be one of humiliation, it also marked the beginning of a significant turning point, an opening for a new figure to emerge. With Vashti gone, a vacancy remained, and Xerxes, guided by his advisors, sought to fill it. A decree was issued throughout the empire, calling for young women to be brought to Susa in what became a royal selection process, where one would ultimately be chosen as queen. It is here that we are introduced to Hadassah, a Jewish orphan living in exile, raised by her cousin Mordecai. She was also known by her Persian name, Esther. Her beauty was evident, but her character reached far beyond appearance. She carried wisdom, strength, and a quiet faith in the God who was directing her steps, even when his presence was not openly acknowledged. Picture the weight of that transition, being taken from a modest life into the overwhelming grandeur of the palace, surrounded by luxury that stood in stark contrast to the struggles of her people. Even as Esther rose within this environment, a growing threat lingered beneath the surface. The Persian system was unyielding. Laws, once written, could not be reversed. Enemies of God's people operated in secrecy, and decisions made within the palace could alter countless lives in an instant. Among these adversaries was Haman, a man driven by deep resentment toward Mordecai and the Jewish people, a hatred that would lead him to design a plan of destruction, one that would soon intersect directly with Esther's path. Though the name of God is not explicitly spoken within this account, his influence is unmistakable. The strength of the empire, the authority of its king, and even the schemes of those within the court all became part of a greater design. Each element moved into place with purpose. Esther's rise to the throne was not a matter of chance. It was the unfolding of divine direction. Consider how unlikely it all appears. A young Jewish woman from a displaced people ascending to become queen over the most powerful empire of her time. By human reasoning, such an outcome would seem impossible, yet in God's plan, limitations hold no power. The Persian Empire, with all its grandeur and complexity, served merely as the setting for something far greater. This unfolding account reveals themes of deliverance, courage, and faithfulness to promises that endure. As this journey continues, reflect on how providence may have been at work in your own experiences. Have there been moments that appeared ordinary at first, yet later revealed a deeper purpose? Have you ever found yourself placed in circumstances far beyond what you expected, only to realize that your steps were being guided all along? From the magnificence of the Persian Empire, where secrets lingered behind golden doors, we now move toward a defining moment, one that would alter the course of history, a queen's firm refusal that quietly prepared the way for a hidden purpose. Esther's journey to the throne begins with a scandal, one that shook the very heart of King Xerxes' court. The account opens with a royal celebration so lavish it defies ordinary description. For 180 days, Xerxes displayed the magnificence of his empire, bringing it all to a climax with a 7-day banquet for the nobles and officials in Susa. Wine flowed without restraint. Tables were laden with rich foods, and the atmosphere pulsed with authority, indulgence, and excess. In the middle of this display, Xerxes issued a decisive command. Queen Vashti was to appear before the intoxicated crowd and showcase her beauty. Now picture Vashti, a queen in her own right, marked by dignity and strength, receiving such an order. The king's command was not an invitation to stand beside him as an equal, but a demand to present herself before men whose gaze lacked honor. Her answer came quickly, and it was unwavering. Scripture does not reveal her thoughts, yet her courage speaks clearly. This was more than resistance to a husband. She stood against the most powerful ruler of her time. The text also tells us that Queen Vashti hosted a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. Esther chapter 1 verse 9. This detail points to her influence, her leadership, and her presence within the palace. Yet her decision carried a heavy consequence. Furious at her refusal, Xerxes turned to his advisors. They feared that Vashti's stand might encourage women throughout the empire to disregard their husbands. Their counsel was swift: remove her from her position and establish a decree that every man should be master in his own household. In a single moment, Vashti lost her crown. The queen who once stood beside Xerxes was removed from her place. Her name would remain, remembered as both a figure of bold resistance and one who bore the cost of that choice. But was this the end of her story, or the beginning of something greater? Here we begin to see the quiet movement of divine purpose. Vashti's refusal created an opening, and that space would soon be filled by Esther. What appeared to be disgrace was, in truth, a turning point. The way was being prepared for a new queen, one whose faith and courage would preserve an entire people. Vashti's story invites reflection. Some view her as a warning, a woman whose stand led to loss. Others see strength, a woman who chose conviction over compromise, regardless of the outcome. Perhaps both perspectives hold truth. Her story reminds us that courage often comes with a cost, and even in the aftermath of difficult choices, God continues to work. For the Jewish people scattered across the Persian Empire, the events in Xerxes' court may have seemed distant, like the affairs of royalty, far removed from their daily lives. Yet beyond what could be seen, God was arranging every detail. Vashti's removal was not merely a political decision. It was part of a greater unfolding that would lead to Esther's rise. As the focus shifts, consider this question. Have you ever stood firm and, in doing so, lost something valuable? And in time, did that moment shape what came next in ways you could not have anticipated? The scene now changes. Vashti is gone, and the search for a new queen begins. Xerxes remains unaware that this search will lead him to a young woman whose faith and courage will alter the destiny of a nation. The royal court was filled with urgency and anticipation. Vashti's absence left a vacancy that echoed through the empire. Xerxes, driven by pride and impulse, called for a new queen. His advisors, eager to restore order and ease his wounded pride, proposed a solution: a search throughout the kingdom for the most beautiful young women to be brought to the palace. They could not see what was to come. This search would reveal not only outward beauty, but a life carrying divine purpose. Away from the splendor of the palace, in the busy city of Susa, lived a young orphan named Hadassah. Her name, meaning myrtle, reflected peace and quiet strength. She was a Jewish exile, raised by her cousin Mordecai, a man known for wisdom and steadfast faith. Within the Persian Empire, her identity had to remain concealed for her protection. To those around her, she was called Esther, a name associated with a star. Her early years were shaped by loss and displacement. Her parents were no longer alive, and her people lived scattered as strangers under the authority of the Persian Empire. Yet in the quiet, unseen moments of her life, God was carefully forming her character, preparing her for a purpose far greater than anyone could have imagined. When the royal decree was issued, summoning young women to be brought into the king's court, Esther was among those selected. Picture the uncertainty that must have filled her heart as she left the familiarity and protection of Mordecai's care and stepped into the lavish yet perilous environment of the palace. Thoughts must have rushed through her mind as she walked along grand corridors, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, each one striving to gain the attention of a king known for casting aside his former queen without hesitation. Yet Esther's path was not centered on outward appearance or charm alone. It was marked by a deeper quality: grace. In a setting where authority was often exercised without mercy, Esther distinguished herself through gentleness, humility, and discernment. Scripture records that she found favor in the eyes of those around her. As written in Esther chapter 2, verse 9, she pleased Haggai, the king's official responsible for the women, and gained his goodwill. Because of this favor, she was given special care and advantages above the others. Still, none of this unfolded by accident. Behind every moment was the unseen guidance of God, directing each step with precision. During the months of preparation, Esther's inner strength and character began to shine just as brightly as her outward beauty. When her time finally came to stand before King Xerxes, the outcome was immediate and unmistakable. The king was drawn to Esther more than to all the other women, and she received his favor and approval above them all. As recorded in Esther chapter 2, verse 17, the king placed the royal crown upon her head and declared her queen in place of Vashti. Her journey from an orphaned girl to the queen of Persia may appear like a story beyond belief, yet it was not shaped by chance. Every step was guided with intention. She was brought into the palace, not for comfort or status, but for a purpose that had yet to fully unfold. Even as the celebrations of her coronation spread throughout the empire, a greater plan was quietly advancing. Meanwhile, Mordecai remained attentive. He stayed near the palace gate, watchful and alert, continuing to care for Esther from a distance. His presence there was not without meaning, as his awareness and wisdom would soon become crucial. At that moment, however, the kingdom saw only a newly crowned queen, unaware of the deeper purpose being set into motion behind the scenes. Esther's account reveals the powerful impact of divine favor. From a place of obscurity and loss, she was elevated to a position of great influence, chosen not only by an earthly ruler, but by the sovereign authority of heaven. Have you ever found yourself feeling unprepared for where you are, or uncertain about the season you are walking through? Esther's life shows that God often works through those who seem least expected, positioning them in ways that surpass human understanding. Her rise to the throne was not simply for her own advancement. It carried a greater purpose, the preservation of her people. As the story continues, the tension will intensify. A dangerous scheme against the Jewish people is beginning to take form, and Esther will soon face a moment that requires courage beyond measure. But for now, take a moment to reflect on how God can lift someone from the most humble beginnings and place them in a position of authority for his divine intentions. Esther's elevation was only the beginning. Consider how you might respond if you realize that your position in life was not given for comfort, but for a calling. Becoming queen marked a moment of divine placement, yet the full weight of her responsibility had not yet been revealed. While she was settling into her new role within the palace, an unseen adversary was already setting plans into motion against her people. Unaware of what was approaching, Esther continued her life in the royal court, while the destiny of an entire nation was quietly drawing closer to her hands. At the entrance of the palace, Mordecai remained steady and observant, faithful both to Esther and to his identity as a Jew. It was there, in that place of watchfulness, that he overheard troubling conversations, whispers of a plot to take the life of King Xerxes. Mordecai urgently sent a message to Esther, and she passed the report to the king, crediting Mordecai by name. The plotters were apprehended and put to death, yet Mordecai's loyalty was simply written down in the royal records, with no immediate reward given. Then Haman appears, a man driven by relentless ambition and consumed with pride. As a powerful official in the court of King Xerxes, Haman's authority grew rapidly, but so did his arrogance. When the king ordered all officials to bow before Haman, one man refused to yield. Mordecai stood firm. Haman's anger ignited instantly, but it went far beyond a bruised ego. When he discovered that Mordecai was a Jew, his fury expanded into a deep hatred that reached beyond one individual. Punishing Mordecai alone was not enough. Haman set his heart on wiping out an entire people. The account in Esther reveals how Haman devised his plan, persuading King Xerxes with deceptive reasoning and the promise of silver to support his scheme. He declared, "There is a certain people scattered among the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs differ from others, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's interest to tolerate them." Esther chapter 3, verse 8. With the king's signet ring, Haman authorized a decree calling for the destruction of the Jewish people on the 13th day of the 12th month. Men, women, and children alike were sentenced to death. Copies of this decree were sent throughout every province, spreading terror and grief. Haman's pride knew no limits. He cast lots, known as Purim, to determine the exact day of destruction, convinced he held power over the destiny of an entire nation. Yet in his arrogance, he failed to recognize a truth beyond his control. The God of Israel was still present, even within a foreign empire that did not acknowledge him. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his garments, clothed himself in sackcloth and ashes, and cried out loudly in the streets of Susa. Across the empire, the Jewish people joined in mourning, but Mordecai did not remain in grief alone. He acted. He sent a message to Esther, urging her to approach the king and plead on behalf of her people. The tension intensified. Though she was queen, Esther was not shielded from the dangers of royal protocol. Entering the king's presence without an invitation could cost her life. As it was known, anyone who approached the king in the inner court without being summoned faced a single law: death, unless the king extended his golden scepter to spare them. Esther chapter 4, verse 11. Mordecai's reply carried both urgency and faith. He warned Esther not to believe she would escape simply because she lived in the palace. If she chose silence, deliverance for the Jewish people would still come from another place, but she and her family would perish. And then came the defining question. Perhaps she had come to her royal position for a moment like this. Esther chapter 4, verses 13 and 14. Meanwhile, Haman, unaware of what was unfolding behind the scenes, took pleasure in his rising power. His pride blinded him completely. The very gallows he ordered to be built for Mordecai stood as a silent sign of what was to come, though he could not yet see it. What compels a person like Haman to descend into such hatred? Is it pride that blinds the heart, insecurity that demands control, or the relentless desire for dominance? Time and again, figures like Haman underestimate the strength and faith of those who trust in God. As events continue to unfold, Esther faces a decision that will stretch her courage to its limits. Will she step forward and risk her life for her people? And will Haman's wicked plan be overturned by divine justice? Haman's scheme stands as a reminder that pride and hatred do not escape God's notice. Even when circumstances seem overwhelming, God is at work, turning evil intentions into opportunities for rescue. The danger was real and immediate. The decree, sealed with the king's authority, loomed over the Jewish people like a gathering storm. While life in the palace carried on with its usual distractions, the streets of Susa echoed with cries of grief and desperation. The threat of destruction was closing in, and time was running out. At the center of it all stood Mordecai, not only mourning, but standing as a voice of boldness, conviction, and unshaken faith. Esther the queen had been drawn, without realizing it, into a story far greater than she could have foreseen. From the height of her royal position, the looming disaster appeared far removed. Yet Mordecai perceived the hand of God guiding events, placing her within the palace at a precise and appointed hour. He understood the urgency and sent a message quickly through a trusted servant. Mordecai's words shattered the sense of safety Esther had come to rely on. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone among all the Jews will escape. Esther 4:13. The grandeur of the palace could not shield her from the consequences of Haman's hatred. Faced with this reality, Esther's first reaction was marked by hesitation. She reminded Mordecai of the unyielding law of the empire. To approach King Xerxes without being summoned was to risk immediate death, and the king had not called for her in 30 days. This was not weakness, it was the instinct to preserve her life. Esther fully understood the danger before her. Every official in the kingdom knew the decree. Any man or woman who entered the inner court without invitation faced execution unless the king extended the golden scepter. As it is written, for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, there is but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter. Esther chapter 4, verse 11. Still, Mordecai's response cut through every fear and justification. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish, and who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Esther chapter 4, verse 14. Those words carried a weight that reached far beyond the moment itself. For such a time as this. This declaration has echoed through generations. Mordecai was not merely pointing to Esther's royal status, he was calling her to recognize the purpose woven into every step that had led her there. The grace that found favor in the king's eyes, the path that placed her on the throne, none of it was accidental. It all converged in this defining moment. Esther had been positioned not simply by the will of a king, but by the sovereign plan of God, and everything shifted in that instant. Esther, once carried along by circumstances beyond her control, rose into a place of strength, courage, and unwavering faith. She sent back her answer, "Go, gather all the Jews who are in Susa, and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." Esther chapter 4, verse 16. This was more than an act of courage. It was complete surrender. Esther accepted that her life was no longer hers to protect. She chose to place everything at risk for her people and for the purpose of God. Mordecai's message was not meant for Esther alone. It continues to speak to every believer who has faced fear, uncertainty, or the heavy responsibility of a calling that feels overwhelming. For such a time as this speaks to the reality of being positioned within a moment that demands faith, obedience, and trust beyond what feels possible. It calls us to recognize that God's providence positions us in precise moments to accomplish His divine purposes. What does this mean for us today? Perhaps you find yourself at a turning point, facing a decision that could shape not only your future, but the lives of those around you. It may be that God is urging you to move forward in faith, to speak with boldness, to take leadership, or to act in ways that feel far beyond your comfort. Mordecai's challenge stands as a powerful reminder that God's purposes will stand firm. The real question is whether we will step into the place He has prepared for us. Esther's 3 days of fasting were far more than a simple act of preparation. They became a declaration of complete dependence on God. Her courage was not rooted in her own strength, but in her trust in the unseen hand of God. As she fasted, the people of Susa joined with her, coming together in urgency and belief. And what about us? Will we seek God's direction in our moments of crisis? Will we answer the call placed upon our lives even when it feels dangerous or uncertain? Esther's account teaches that courage is not the absence of fear, but steadfast faith in the midst of it. So where might God be calling you for such a time as this? Are there opportunities you have hesitated to accept? Moments where fear has held you back from stepping forward? Remember this: God equips those He calls. He does not demand perfection, only a willing heart. As Esther prepared to step into her role within God's unfolding plan, the tension in the account intensified. The stakes were immense, yet so was the faith that would carry her onward. Take a moment to reflect on your own for such a time as this experience. How has God invited you to step into His purpose? Share this message with someone who needs encouragement, someone who needs to be reminded that God's timing is always perfect. As the story continues, the echoes of prayer and fasting had scarcely faded in the homes of Susa when Esther reached her decision. For 3 days, she had united with her people in seeking God's guidance, abstaining from food and drink, strengthening her heart for what lay ahead. The fear that once held her was replaced with a calm and unshakable resolve. If I perish, I perish. These words resounded within her as she clothed herself in royal garments, each movement deliberate and filled with meaning. This moment went beyond outward appearance. The royal robes represented her position as queen, yet within her she carried a deeper identity, the servant of God, chosen for this very hour. The movement from Mordecai's challenge to Esther's decision marked a defining turning point. She did not approach the king merely as a queen seeking favor. She came as an intercessor, standing in the gap for her people. The risk before her could not have been greater. The law of Persia was absolute. Anyone who approached the king without being summoned faced immediate death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. There were no exceptions to this decree, not even for the queen. Esther understood the danger that stood before her. Yet she also held firmly to a greater truth. The God of her ancestors, the one who parted the Red Sea and brought down the walls of Jericho, remained at work. As Esther moved toward the inner court, a heavy silence surrounded her. Each step carried the possibility of rejection, disgrace, or death. The guards watched closely, their hands near their weapons, ready to enforce the king's unyielding command. Then the doors opened. King Xerxes sat upon his throne, a symbol of authority and power, his gaze sweeping across the room with intensity. Esther's heart beat rapidly as their eyes met. In that moment, everything seemed to pause. Would he extend the scepter, or would her life end there? The golden scepter lifted. Relief spread through the court as it was extended toward Esther, granting her favor and acceptance. Yet for her, this moment marked only the beginning. She approached with careful composure, bowing low before the king, waiting for his voice. "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it shall be given to you." Esther chapter 5, verse 3. The king's offer was generous, but Esther understood the importance of timing. She did not immediately reveal Haman's scheme. Instead, with wisdom and discernment, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet. Her careful approach revealed that her courage was not only seen in her bold entrance, but also in her patience, strategy, and trust in God's perfect unfolding. She recognized that timing held immense significance. This act of bravery did not emerge suddenly. It was formed through days of seeking God, through fasting, and through a deep awareness of who she was as one appointed for a purpose. Esther stepped into her role fully, not because success was certain, but because her confidence rested in a God far greater than any danger she faced. Her courage reached beyond the immediate rescue of her people. It set into motion a lasting example of faith lived out boldly. Her account shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward even while fear lingers, trusting that God's guidance will lead through uncertainty. There are times when each of us is faced with a moment that requires faith, even when the outcome feels unclear and the cost seems overwhelming. Esther's choice invites reflection on what obedience to God truly means when fear is present. It calls attention to a faith that is alive and active, not idle, a faith that compels action even when circumstances appear unfavorable. Her approach also reveals the strength found in interceding for others. She did not go before the king for personal gain, but on behalf of her people. In doing so, she took on the role of one willing to stand in the gap, risking everything so that others might be spared. In this, her actions reflect the greater picture of sacrificial intercession. Consider the steps of faith being set before you even now. Are there risks you have avoided? Opportunities where hesitation has held you back? Esther's example reminds us that courage is not rooted in fearlessness, but in trusting the one who holds every outcome securely. As the events continue, her careful planning leads to a banquet that will alter the course of everything. For now, pause and consider the boldness it required for her to stand before the throne. Reflect on the steps you may be called to take in your own journey. Though Esther had approached King Xerxes with courage, her task was still unfolding. The extension of the scepter granted her access, but the true challenge remained ahead. The fate of her people rested on what she would say next, and she had only one opportunity to reveal the truth. Guided by wisdom shaped through faith and careful thought, she prepared herself for a moment that would shift everything. As the scene moves from her courageous stance before the king, it transitions into a setting both intimate and filled with tension, a royal banquet. This gathering was no ordinary feast. It was a carefully prepared setting where courage and divine purpose would meet. The banquet hall shimmered with splendor. Golden walls reflected the flickering glow of torches. King Xerxes reclined in his royal seat, while nearby sat Haman, his pride evident in his posture and expression, certain of his standing and unaware of what was about to unfold. An atmosphere of expectation filled the room, yet only Esther fully understood the weight of the moment approaching. The king's voice broke through the silence, echoing across the hall as he addressed her, asking what she desired, promising that even up to half the kingdom could be granted. This was the opening she had been waiting for, yet she did not rush. Her composure remained steady and deliberate. The patience she had exercised now revealed its strength. She understood that the right moment would give her words greater impact. With calm authority and a voice grounded in trust, she spoke. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my request, and spare my people. This is my petition." The words settled over the room, bringing a sudden stillness. The king leaned forward, confusion and concern crossing his face as he tried to grasp her meaning. Esther continued, unwavering, even as the risk of her words remained immense. "For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have remained silent, because such suffering would not justify troubling the king." A shift came over Xerxes. His expression hardened, and his grip tightened as anger began to rise. His voice carried a sharp edge as he demanded to know who could have planned such a thing. Attention turned, and the moment of revelation arrived. Esther's gaze locked onto Haman with clarity and resolve as she declared that the adversary and enemy was none other than him. The confidence that had once defined Haman vanished instantly. His face lost all color as the reality of his exposure overtook him. The man who had felt untouchable now stood trembling before the king's growing fury. Xerxes rose abruptly, anger consuming him as he began to pace. The one he had trusted and elevated was now revealed as a traitor. Esther's words carried their full weight, leaving no room for doubt. What unfolded in that room displayed perfect timing. Esther had waited, not out of hesitation, but out of trust. Her patience allowed the truth to be seen clearly, and her courage ensured it could not be ignored. This moment marked a turning point, not only because of her boldness, but because it revealed a greater orchestration at work. Every step, every delay, every decision had led to this exact point. Though Esther could not see every detail, she trusted fully, and that trust aligned with a greater purpose unfolding. Overwhelmed with anger, the king stepped out into the garden, his emotions surging as the weight of betrayal settled heavily upon him. Meanwhile, overwhelmed with fear, Haman collapsed at Esther's feet, pleading desperately for his life. Yet his frantic appeal only hastened the outcome he dreaded. When King Xerxes returned, he saw Haman sprawled near the queen and misread the scene as an additional offense. Without hesitation, judgment was pronounced. The very structure Haman had prepared for Mordecai became the instrument of his own end. The same pride that had fueled his hatred now brought about his ruin, a striking reversal that revealed the sovereign hand of God at work throughout these events. This banquet marked far more than a turning point in Esther's account. It stood as a powerful witness to courage anchored in faith and trust in divine timing. Esther's bravery did more than preserve her people. It also uncovered the destructive force of pride and demonstrated how truth ultimately overcomes deception. For those who believe, this moment calls for reflection. Are we prepared to rely on God's timing even when circumstances feel overwhelming? Can we wait patiently for the appointed moment to speak or act, confident that every detail is under His direction? This defining scene reminds us that courage joined with faith can overcome even the strongest opposition. It urges us to step forward into the responsibilities set before us, trusting that God's timing remains flawless. Consider your own life. Are there moments where patience is required or situations calling for bold action? As the events following this banquet begin to unfold, the path toward deliverance and victory becomes clearer. Yet for now, pause and consider the beauty of God's providence displayed in this decisive moment where a courageous queen and a faithful God altered the course of history. The tension of the banquet had shattered like fragile glass, leaving Haman exposed and King Xerxes burning with anger. The man who once stood confidently in a position of influence, carefully plotting revenge against Mordecai, was now reduced to a trembling figure. His arrogance had fashioned the very snare that would claim him. The towering structure he built with the intent to destroy an innocent man now stood ready to seal his own fate. After Esther's bold revelation, the king withdrew into the palace garden, struggling with the weight of betrayal. Xerxes had placed deep trust in Haman, elevating him to honor and granting him authority within the kingdom. That trust now lay shattered by the revelation that Haman had plotted the destruction of the queen's people. Inside, Haman was overcome with fear. For a man accustomed to controlling outcomes and wielding influence, this moment was beyond anything he had imagined. Falling before Queen Esther, he begged for mercy, his former pride dissolving into desperation. Yet the timing of his plea only intensified the king's anger. When Xerxes re-entered the hall, he found Haman still at the queen's side, a sight he interpreted as a grave offense. "Will he even violate the queen in my presence, here in my own house?" the king exclaimed, his anger erupting without restraint. Esther, chapter 7, verse 8. At once the attendants seized Haman, and the process of judgment moved forward swiftly. But beyond human action, a greater purpose was unfolding, divine providence guiding each step. Then one of the eunuchs, Harbona, spoke with a suggestion marked by striking irony. A structure 75 feet high stands near Haman's house. He had it prepared for Mordecai, who spoke in the king's favor. Esther chapter 7, verse 9. The king's response came without delay: hang him on it. As Haman was led away, his fate stood as a sobering reminder of the consequences of unchecked pride and malicious intent. The structure he had built with satisfaction, envisioning Mordecai's downfall, now became a testimony to his own destruction. Haman's account offers a clear warning about the dangers of pride. His rise had been driven by an unrelenting desire for recognition and control. Mordecai's refusal to bow stirred resentment within him, which he interpreted as a personal insult rather than an act of conviction. That unchecked pride led him beyond personal vengeance to the attempted destruction of an entire people. Yet in the end, justice prevailed. The instrument intended for harm became a symbol of reversal. The schemes Haman designed turned back upon him, reflecting a truth echoed throughout Scripture. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26, verse 27. Haman's downfall was not merely an act of punishment. It revealed the sovereignty of God woven through every detail of this account. Though God's name is not directly mentioned in the book of Esther, His presence is unmistakable. The precise sequence of events, from Esther's rise to her position to the king's restless night that led to Mordecai's honor, points to divine orchestration guiding every moment. In these events, we witness the fulfillment of promises spoken long before. God had committed himself to preserving his people, and even through uncertainty and danger, his faithfulness remained constant. Haman's fate stands as a reminder that no human plan can overturn God's purposes, regardless of how powerful it may appear. As we reflect on this moment, one question naturally arises. Where do we find ourselves within this unfolding account? Are there moments in our lives where pride clouds our vision and leads us toward a dangerous course? Have we ever, in anger or resentment, set traps for others only to discover that we ourselves are caught in the consequences of our own intentions? The downfall of Haman compels us to search our hearts and to place our trust in God's righteous judgment instead of attempting to control outcomes on our own. It is a call to humility, a reminder that arrogance precedes ruin, while those who bow before God receive his mercy. This turning point also brings reassurance to those who feel burdened, mistreated, or overlooked. The account of Haman shows that no injustice escapes God's notice and that he moves with perfect timing, even when his presence seems concealed. His justice never disappears. As this account unfolds, it becomes clear that the fall of one man becomes the turning point for the preservation of an entire people. For now, let this moment remain a striking witness to the certainty that God's justice stands firm and his purposes cannot be overturned. Where have you witnessed pride lead to collapse, and what lessons did it leave behind? Out of the ruin left by Haman's fall, a new sense of hope began to emerge. The structure intended to destroy Mordecai instead became the instrument marking the end of their fiercest enemy. Yet the threat had not fully passed. The decree Haman had set in motion, sealed with the authority of the king, still cast a shadow over the Jewish people. Though Haman was gone, the law he established could not be undone. This left the Jewish community exposed to destruction. Still, even when no clear solution could be seen, God was already at work through Esther and Mordecai, preparing a path toward deliverance. After the turmoil surrounding Haman's execution settled, Esther approached the king once more. Although the immediate danger of approaching him had lessened, the gravity of her request weighed heavily upon her. She fell before the king, overcome with emotion, pleading earnestly for the lives of her people. "If it pleases the king," she said, "and if I have found favor in his sight, let an order be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman to destroy the Jews." Esther 8, verse 5. Moved by her bravery and her devotion to her people, the king extended his golden scepter toward her. Yet even with his favor, a serious obstacle remained. According to the laws of Persia, a royal decree could not simply be revoked, not even by the king himself. The command ordering the destruction of the Jews on the 13th day of the 12th month still stood. Time was slipping away, and the urgency of the situation had never been greater. In this critical moment, both the wisdom of Mordecai and the guiding hand of God became evident. Mordecai proposed a new decree, one that granted the Jewish people the right to defend themselves against anyone who would rise against them. This edict, also sealed with the king's signet ring, was sent out swiftly across the empire. Picture the scene: royal messengers traveling with urgency, carrying this message throughout the vast reaches of the Persian kingdom. From the royal citadel in Susa to the most remote provinces, the Jewish people who had once been paralyzed by fear now found renewed courage and hope. When the appointed day finally came, it was not the Jews who fell, but those who sought their harm. The outcome was completely reversed. In Susa alone, 500 aggressors were struck down, and across the empire, thousands more met defeat. What once appeared to be unavoidable destruction became a day of victory, not through sheer human strength, but through the unseen guidance of God directing every detail. Yet this triumph extended beyond physical survival. It carried deep spiritual significance. The deliverance of the Jews in Persia reflected the broader story of God's covenant faithfulness to his people. Even though God's name is not directly spoken in the book of Esther, his presence is unmistakable. The precise unfolding of events, the boldness of Esther, and the discernment of Mordecai all reveal a greater plan being carried out. This moment of rescue also holds powerful spiritual meaning. Just as the Jewish people were preserved through a decree granting life and protection, we too are offered salvation through God's ultimate act of grace and redemption through Christ. What was intended for harm was transformed into good, revealing God's sovereignty even in circumstances that seemed impossible. For the Jewish people, this victory meant far more than mere survival. It marked a complete transformation. The fear that once held them captive gave way to rejoicing and celebration. Mordecai's elevation to a position of authority under King Xerxes brought both justice and honor, while the institution of the Feast of Purim ensured that this story of deliverance would be remembered and celebrated for generations. What significance does this hold for us today? It reminds us that God's providence is always at work, even when it remains unseen. In moments of deep uncertainty, when challenges appear overwhelming, He continues to shape a story of rescue and restoration. Esther and Mordecai did not have the advantage of seeing the entire picture. They stepped forward with courage and faith, trusting that God would act. Are there places in your life where the circumstances seem stacked against you, where uncertainty and fear threaten to overshadow hope? The account of Esther stands as a powerful reminder that God's purposes cannot be stopped, and His love for His people remains constant. This victory also invites us to reflect on the roles we each play within the unfolding story God is writing. In the same way that Esther and Mordecai were positioned at a critical moment in history to fulfill a divine purpose, we are also summoned to respond with boldness and unwavering trust when faced with trials. The rescue of the Jewish people is more than an ancient account. It reflects a pattern of deliverance that continues to speak today. It ultimately points toward the greater redemption found in Christ, the one who brings freedom from sin and victory over death. Think about the moments when God has reversed situations that seemed beyond hope. Where have you witnessed circumstances shift in ways that could only be described as divine intervention? Let us lift our voices in recognition of the one who rescues, restores, and remains faithful in every generation. With the safety of the Jewish people secured and their adversaries overcome, the account of Esther arrives at a moment of triumph. Yet this triumph was never intended to fade into memory or remain a distant historical event. It marked a decisive turning point that called for remembrance. A season where fear gave way to rejoicing, sorrow was exchanged for gladness, and survival became a powerful witness to God's hidden yet active presence. After this remarkable deliverance, both Mordecai and Esther ensured that what had taken place would be preserved in the hearts of the people for generations to come. A decree was issued throughout the vast Persian Empire, establishing a new annual observance known as the Feast of Purim. The name Purim comes from the casting of lots, used by Haman to select the date intended for destruction. What once symbolized impending disaster was transformed into a lasting reminder that the schemes of the wicked cannot prevail against the sovereign purposes of God. That which had represented doom was now redefined as a celebration of rescue. But how did this observance take form, and what meaning does it carry? Mordecai sent written instructions to the Jewish communities across the empire, directing them to commemorate the 14th and 15th days of Adar with feasting, joy, and the sharing of gifts, both with one another and with those in need. As recorded in Esther chapter 9 verses 20 to 22, these days were to stand forever as a memorial of their deliverance from destruction, a lasting testimony that no matter how severe the situation, God's providence can bring salvation when hope appears to be gone. This observance was more than a recognition of survival. It was an expression of deep gratitude. Gratitude for preserved life, for restored unity, and for a God who works behind the scenes in ways that are not always immediately visible. Picture the streets of ancient Persia alive with celebration, voices filled with laughter, tables overflowing with food, and hands exchanging gifts. For a people who had once lived under the looming threat of annihilation, such joy was nothing short of extraordinary. It was a living reminder that despair had been overturned by divine intervention. One of the most remarkable aspects of this account lies within the text itself. Throughout the entire narrative, the name of God is not directly mentioned, yet His presence is unmistakably woven into every event. The establishment of Purim stands as a recognition of that unseen guidance, an acknowledgement that even when He is not explicitly named, His hand is at work. This truth carries a message that extends far beyond that moment in history. How often do we overlook God's activity in our own lives simply because it does not unfold in ways we expect? Purim calls us to look more closely, to recognize that His providence is constantly at work, even in ordinary or uncertain circumstances. The observance of Purim also transforms celebration into an act of worship. By gathering together, recounting the events, and rejoicing in their deliverance, the people were not merely marking an occasion, they were honoring the God who had preserved them. Their joy became an offering, their remembrance an act of devotion. Even today, Purim continues to be observed with energy and meaning in Jewish communities around the world. The book of Esther, known as the Megillah, is read aloud. Each time Haman's name is spoken, it is met with loud reactions, boos, shouts, and the sound of noisemakers, symbolically drowning out his memory. This practice carries deep significance. It serves as a reminder that evil does not have the final word when confronted with divine justice. Alongside this, acts of generosity, sharing meals, giving to those in need, and celebrating together remain central to the observance. These expressions reflect a people shaped by gratitude and committed to honoring the God who did not forsake them in their moment of crisis. While Purim holds a distinct place within Jewish tradition, its message reaches far beyond its cultural setting. It speaks of a God who never sleeps, who orchestrates events for good, and who uses even small acts of courage to accomplish purposes far greater than we can see. In the busyness and noise of everyday life, it becomes easy to overlook the moments when God has quietly guided, protected, or delivered us. This appointed time of remembrance invites reflection. Consider the ways in which you have experienced His help. Where have you seen doors open unexpectedly? Where have you found strength when none seemed available? And how might that gratitude be expressed in a way that honors Him? As the Jewish people continued to observe this victory year after year, Purim grew into something far greater than a yearly celebration. It became a legacy, an enduring testimony passed from one generation to the next. A reminder of the God who rescues, the courage demonstrated by Esther, and the truth that justice will ultimately prevail over evil. Isn't this at the very heart of our faith? To carry forward the testimony of God's goodness, His unwavering faithfulness, and His mighty power, handing it down to those who come after us so they too can rely on Him in their moments of need. Reflect for a moment. Where have you witnessed the quiet, unseen work of God in your own life? Let us pause together and celebrate the one who rescues, restores, and transforms sorrow into joy. The city of Susa had grown still. The gallows had been taken down, and the sounds of triumph had slowly given way to the normal pace of daily living. The Feast of Purim had been established as a lasting remembrance, filled with color and joy. Yet one profound question continued to linger. Where was God throughout all of this? In the entire account of Esther, His name is not directly spoken, not even once, and yet His mark is evident everywhere, intricately woven into every moment and every turn of events. Moving from the celebration of Purim, we are confronted with a powerful truth. The account of Esther reveals a faith rooted in what cannot be seen. It shows us that even when God appears silent, He remains fully present, carefully arranging events with perfect wisdom. But why would His name be left out of the account? Could this absence be deliberate? Perhaps it serves as an invitation to recognize His work even when it is not plainly stated. The unfolding events form a pattern of occurrences so precise, so perfectly timed, that they cannot be dismissed as mere chance. Esther, a young Jewish orphan, rises to become queen in a foreign land. Mordecai happens to uncover a plot against the king at exactly the right moment, preserving the king's life. Haman's scheme collapses through a sequence of events that appear ordinary on the surface, ultimately leading to his downfall on the very structure he prepared for Mordecai. None of these moments openly declare God's involvement, yet each bears the unmistakable signature of divine guidance. Though His name is not written, His presence is clear. It is as though the narrative quietly urges us, look more closely. Can you recognize Him? For the Jewish people facing the threat of destruction, the lack of a visible, direct intervention from God could have felt deeply troubling. Still, Esther and Mordecai chose to move forward with boldness and trust, believing that God was at work beyond what they could see. This kind of faith, trusting without visible proof, is one of the most demanding and life-changing parts of walking with God. How often do we face the same struggle? When prayers seem to go unanswered, when circumstances feel overwhelming, when God's voice seems distant, do we still believe He is working? The account of Esther reminds us that God's silence does not equal His absence, and His hiddenness does not mean He is inactive. There is also another purpose behind the absence of God's name. It opens the door for every reader, no matter their background, to recognize the reality of divine providence. Unlike other parts of Scripture that clearly name God, this account operates through subtlety, showing that His hand is present even in ordinary moments. Consider this carefully. If God's name had been repeatedly emphasized, would the account carry the same depth of connection for every reader? By leaving His name unspoken, space is created for each of us to recognize His activity in our own lives, in unexpected encounters, in closed doors that redirect our path, in circumstances that seem random but lead to something greater. Esther's courage and trust challenge us to look inward. How often do we wait for a dramatic sign when God may be speaking in quiet ways? How often do we expect overwhelming miracles while His work unfolds through small, unnoticed details? In times of uncertainty, it can feel as though God is far away. Yet this account reminds us that He is always near. When devastating news arrives, when opportunities disappear, when relationships break apart, God remains present, guiding, sustaining, and arranging a purpose that we may not yet understand. Picture yourself standing where Esther stood, approaching the king with uncertainty, not knowing if you would be spared or condemned. There is no audible voice from heaven, no visible sign to reassure you. All that remains is a deep inner conviction that this moment matters, that you have been placed here for a reason. This is what active faith looks like, not waiting for complete clarity, but moving forward with trust. This kind of faith has the power to influence lives, shape families, impact communities, and even alter the course of nations. The account of Esther shows us that the absence of God's name does not mean the absence of His authority or His power. It speaks to anyone who has ever questioned whether God hears, whether He cares, or whether He is truly present. It reminds us that faith is not built on what is seen, but on trust in what is unseen. As you reflect on this part of Esther's journey, consider this question carefully. Where in your own life have you recognized the hidden work of God? Is this not one of the deepest callings of faith, to preserve the witness of God's goodness, His constant faithfulness, and His sovereign power, then pass that witness on to the next generation so they too may trust Him when their own hour of testing arrives? Take a quiet moment and think carefully. Where have you seen the gentle hidden hand of God at work in your own story? Let us stop here together and honor the one who saves, heals, restores, and turns mourning into rejoicing. By this point, the city of Susa had settled into silence once more. The instruments of death were gone, and the loud cries of victory had gradually faded into the ordinary rhythm of life. The Feast of Purim had been firmly established as an enduring memorial, marked by gladness, celebration, and remembrance. Yet one weighty question still remained. Where was God in all of this? Throughout the entire book of Esther, His name is never directly mentioned, not even a single time, and still, His fingerprints appear throughout the whole account, carefully stitched into every scene, every reversal, and every decisive moment. As we move beyond the joy of Purim, we come face to face with a profound reality. Esther presents a kind of faith anchored in what cannot be physically seen. It teaches us that even when God seems quiet, He is never absent. He is still present, still ruling, still ordering events with flawless wisdom. So why would His name remain unspoken in this account? Could that omission have purpose? Perhaps it was intentional. Perhaps it was meant to awaken our eyes to His activity even when it is not openly announced. The events unfold with such precision, such striking timing, and such remarkable alignment that they cannot honestly be reduced to coincidence. Esther, a Jewish orphan in exile, is raised to the position of queen in a foreign empire. Mordecai uncovers a conspiracy against the king at exactly the moment it matters, and the king's life is preserved. Haman's wicked plot unravels through a series of events that seem natural on the surface, until he falls by means of the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. None of these moments openly declare, God has done this. and yet every one of them bears the unmistakable imprint of divine providence. His name may not appear in the written words, but his presence is unmistakable in the movement of the story. It is almost as though the narrative is quietly leaning toward us and saying, "Look again, look carefully. Can you see him there?" For the Jewish people living under the shadow of annihilation, the absence of a visible miracle or a direct spoken word from God could easily have felt unsettling. Yet Esther and Mordecai chose courage over fear and trust over despair. They moved forward, believing that God was still at work beyond the limits of their sight. This kind of faith, trusting God without immediate evidence, is among the hardest and most transformative parts of walking with Him. And is that not often our struggle as well? When prayers seem delayed, when the pressure around us grows heavier, when heaven feels silent and God's voice seems far away, do we still trust that He is working? Esther teaches us that the silence of God should never be mistaken for the absence of God, and His hiddenness should never be interpreted as inactivity. There is yet another reason the name of God may remain unspoken in this sacred account. It allows every reader from every background to discern the reality of divine providence for themselves. Unlike other books of Scripture where God is openly named and His actions are directly announced, Esther reveals His rule through quiet movements and ordinary details, showing that His hand is present even when life appears completely natural. Think about that with care. If God's name had been stated again and again, would the account strike the heart in quite the same way? By leaving His name unspoken, the story creates room for each of us to recognize His work in our own lives, in unexpected meetings, in doors that close only to redirect our steps, in events that seem accidental, yet lead to something far greater than we first understood. The courage and trust of Esther press us to examine ourselves. How often do we wait for a dramatic sign while God may already be speaking through quieter means? How often do we expect a public miracle while His purpose is unfolding through details we almost overlook? In seasons of uncertainty, it can feel as though God is distant and unreachable. Yet Esther testifies that He is always near. When terrible news arrives, when opportunities disappear without warning, when relationships fracture and the future becomes unclear, God remains present. He continues to guide, to sustain, and to arrange His purpose, even when we cannot yet make sense of what He is doing. Now place yourself where Esther stood, stepping toward the king in uncertainty, unable to know whether mercy or death awaited you. There is no voice thundering from heaven. There is no visible sign placed before your eyes. All you have is a steady conviction deep within that this moment matters, that your life has not been placed here by accident, that there is purpose in your position. This is the shape of living faith, not waiting until every question is answered, but moving forward in trust, even when much remains unseen. And this kind of faith does more than sustain one person. It carries the power to touch lives, shape households, strengthen communities, and even influence the direction of entire nations. The book of Esther shows us with unmistakable force that the absence of God's name does not mean the absence of His rule, His authority, or His power. It speaks directly to every person who has ever wondered whether God truly hears, whether He truly cares, or whether He is truly near. It reminds us that faith does not rest on what the eyes can see, but on confidence in the God who is present even when unseen. So, as you linger on this part of Esther's journey, hold this question before your heart. Where in your own life have you begun to recognize the hidden hand of God at work? Whether you are standing against wrongdoing, expressing your faith openly, or learning to trust the direction God is leading you, Esther's life urges us to rise to the moment appointed for us. Her journey reminds us that every season carries purpose. Right now, pause and reflect. What step is God placing before you? Could it be a difficult conversation you've been putting off, a bold move you've hesitated to make, or a cause stirring deeply within your heart that you feel called to support? Whatever that step may be, hold firmly to this truth. God's hand is often revealed through our willingness to act. When we respond in obedience, even when fear is present, we position ourselves within His greater plan. Esther's courage did more than rescue her people in a critical hour. It ignited a lasting testimony of bravery and faith that still speaks across generations. In the same way, every step you take in faith, no matter how small it may appear, carries the power to influence lives far beyond your immediate view. God can use your obedience to create impact that stretches into places you may never personally witness. As we come to the end of this powerful account, let Esther's story remain alive within your heart. Her courage was not born out of certainty, but out of trust in a God who was working behind the scenes all along. She chose to stand when it would have been easier to remain silent. She chose faith over fear, purpose over comfort, and obedience over hesitation. And because of that, history was changed. Now the question turns to you. What lessons have you learned from the complete story of the book of Esther? Have you recognized moments in your own life where God may be positioning you for something greater? Perhaps you've realized that your voice matters more than you thought, or that your current situation is not random, but part of a divine plan unfolding step by step. Take a moment and reflect on where you are right now. You may be closer to your "for such a time as this" moment than you realize. God is still working, still positioning, still calling ordinary people to do extraordinary things through faith. If this message has spoken to you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more faith-building content. Most importantly, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. What stood out to you the most, and what step of faith are you ready to take next? Your story could inspire someone else to rise with courage.